Hi, it's Michelle and I'm a certified holistic nutritionist, and I just wanted to know, have you ever felt sort of angry or irritated doing something, feeling like you're doing something so great and then you feel super depleted and end up eating to soothe yourself? So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. It's all about emotional eating and boundaries. And with a lot of emotional eaters, it's really hard to uphold our boundaries. We tend to not realize we have boundaries, and then we overgive and exhaust ourselves and then turn to food to soothe ourselves. So I'm going to describe a little bit about boundaries. So boundaries are really our boundaries are our values, the things that help keep us feeling good. They help distinguish us from another person. So they are pretty unique to each person, and they just make sure that we are not overexerting ourselves or giving too much, that we're always taking care of ourselves. So for instance, a boundary could be, I like vanilla ice cream and someone else likes chocolate ice cream. Boundaries are also not rigid. They can be flexible. So it could be, I go to bed every night at 9 p.m., but then once in a while I go to bed at 11. So most of the time we are sticking to our boundaries. They're flexible, and we just adjust depending on the situation. So depending on our energy or our mood, we adjust our boundaries. For instance, visiting a friend, you say, I'm going to stay for 2 hours. And if you need to leave after an hour, you leave after an hour, or you don't stay for the whole day and deplete yourself and kind of feel that you just have to be there all the while not feeling really great. So the thing about boundaries with emotional eaters is that they tend to not hear them very well. So what's happening is that essentially whenever that emotion comes up, when you're an emotional eater, usually you're not super aware of that emotion. You're just so used to that pattern of giving and giving that you just end up giving in to the other person. You want to be nice. You're afraid of kind of standing up for yourself, or you're not even aware of it. You give in, you feel super drained and depleted because you did, and then you end up going towards food to feel better or feel in control or just to soothe yourself. So I see this happening so much with clients. This has happened to me in the past before, where you sort of give in to something and you're doing it and you feel really not great after. You feel angry or irritable or really sort of, you just feel not great, right? So I've seen this so much with clients, and I want to give you a few examples to see if this is something that's happened to you as well, because it's important to notice these patterns. So I've had a client, for instance, she invited family over for 2 days and specific people. And when they came, they invited other members of her family. And then that became really overwhelming for her, because then she had to adjust and find space and to cater to more people. But if she had held on to her boundaries and said, this is overwhelming for me, or if she even recognized like that this was too much for her, she would have said something. Instead, she kind of shrunk and gave in and accommodated and felt really resentful and upset. And instead of saying, she needed more space, she ended up just throwing out everything she was working on nourishing her body, and ate whatever she wanted. She used food to soothe herself, and so she didn't uphold her boundaries. Another example of a client is that every time she goes to a birthday party, if she gets caught talking to someone for a really long period and she doesn't want to keep talking to them, instead of saying, it's great catching up with you, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go to the washroom, I'm just going to, take a break, she decides to have the conversation, and then she eats food while she's having it to not feel so uncomfortable, because she feels really awkward having to leave the conversation. And again, this goes back to feeling like you need to be doing the good thing or the best thing. And if you're not, then you just use food to cover up those uncomfortable feelings. And so what's happening here is that when we eat food to cover up the sort of anger and resentment, we are not listening to our emotions. We're not listening to these emotions are really important to tell us that we're crossing a boundary. We're betraying ourselves in some way. We're not going to feel good. And we're also not acting out of genuine wanting to give. We feel really obligated. And so these emotions are super important to listen to. But if you're covering them up with food, you're not going to hear them. And so this is what I see a lot with clients when they come back to me and they say, I overate here, or I was emotionally eating here. I don't know why I was eating. There's usually something going on under the surface. So what we do when we work together is to dig into what triggered them to feel that way. What's their belief underneath? What is sort of making them do that thing and not standing up and feeling confident and empowered to say, this is my boundary. So we work on that. And when we work on that, what happens is that we get into why they're not able to be confident in their boundary. They have a boundary, but they're not upholding it. And when they're able to get really clear, feel the emotion on top, process whatever is unresolved, and really get to this is their truth, then they can start creating those boundaries in their life and sticking to them instead of just saying it and giving in because they feel badly, not because they genuinely feel that they're flexible. And so when they're able to be so clear about their boundaries and they relate it to someone because they are so clear and it's not emotionally charged, whether that person likes it or not, sometimes people are really receptive, sometimes they're not, they're able to still stick to it because they need to take care of themselves. Those boundaries are there to make sure they're taking care of themselves and they don't feel depleted. So that is how they then implement it into their life, and that creates space for them to be and to say no, or to tune in when they are overextending themselves so that they don't end up feeling resentful and angry and then coping. So let me know if that resonates with you. I see this so much with emotional eaters, and it's hard to sort of switch and create those boundaries, but it is so possible. So I just want to say that it's possible to change those habits, to change those patterns. And if you're looking for more guidance, please send me a message. I'd love to connect with you. And of course, if you have any questions, leave them below. And please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. And I look forward to sharing more with you. And I hope you have a great day.